Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Glee Season 5, Episode 15, Bash. And as you guys couldn't tell, I was really looking forward to this episode because just like last week's was amazing, I was hoping this one would be just as amazing. And I knew there was a really sad scene coming, but it turned out that wasn't even a lot of the episode. That was some of the episode, but the episode wasn't exactly focused on that. This episode is mainly about all the characters basically trying to, this is about all the characters sort of, not stating a very eye-opening episode, I think, definitely taught a lot of lessons. Every single storyline taught some kind of a lesson. Some of them are not resolved yet, so I'm wondering where some of them are going to go, especially one in particular. You guys know which one I'm talking about. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what else is going to, happen next week, because there was a really big cliffhanger in this episode. So let's just get to this episode because it was amazing and it was really, really good. And the one complaint that I do have, and it's just a minor complaint, I felt like the Kurt storyline, you could have done a little bit more with it. It wasn't exactly developed. In order to talk about Kurt's storyline, we have to talk about Rachel's storyline first, because that storyline intertwines with the main storyline, which was Kurt's storyline. Technically, Rachel's storyline was the main storyline of this episode. Basically, Rachel is preparing, Rachel's in Funny Girl, and she's preparing to be in, in the Winter Showcase, just like we saw last season, with the Winter Showcase, in that last season when she did in Season 4. She's preparing for it, but it's kind of a last-minute thing for her, and she's talking to her director, she's saying, can I get these weeks off, and what I like about this is that, the show is pretty much portrayed, the producers to Rachel as, like, they'll give her anything. Finally, in this episode, we kind of saw them say no. We saw them say no. They said, you're in every scene, and I really like this. I felt like I was watching kind of like Smash at this point, because it really reminded me of how Smash was, and I like that Glee's kind of doing that, but it's also still being its own thing. But basically what they say is, no, we're not going to give you, days off. You're in every single scene. It is your responsibility to do this, not ours, and I like that they've said no for once, It seems like they've been giving Rachel everything that she's wanted, and they finally said no, and I was actually pretty happy that they said no about that. So that was definitely interesting. So she decides to perform. Now, before this had happened, Kurt and all of them went to this vigil for this guy, Russ. Russ was this guy who was basically gay bashed, which basically it means when you're punched a bunch of times, and it's when a bunch of guys were beating him up because they're upset about the gay weddings and things like that. And, it's true, there are people out there who are like that, and it's honestly really sad. I feel really bad for all the, gay people out there who are like that, because, unfortunately, that happens to people, and, I mean, it's terrifying to think about, really, because we're all people, and to think of that happening to someone is just awful. So, Kurt tells Rachel all about that, and they say, and all of them are saying, oh, I'm sure it's not that big of a deal, I'm sure it's not going to happen again, and, then Rachel performs her, the song Broadway Baby with Blaine, but Carmen is not impressed at all. We did see Carmen Tibideaux again, Whoopi Goldberg, who's always great on the show, but I actually think this was probably her best episode, because she really schooled Rachel in this episode. She told Rachel that she is not letting this stand, and she told Rachel that she has to come back and she needs to do a solo song, but Rachel said she doesn't have time, she's too busy with Funny Girl, and Carmen Tibideaux says, nope, that's not gonna cut it. She basically told her, you need to make a choice, either Funny Girl or Nyada, and Rachel listens to her thing about, a choice, and Rachel decides to quit Nyada. And, Carmen Tibideaux says, think long and hard about this and everything. And I was so surprised that Rachel quit. I'm like, oh, I could not believe that Rachel quit. I seriously, I couldn't believe it. Because, think about all this work that Rachel has been putting into, Nyada. All of Season 3 was her trying to get into Nyada. Season 4 was her trying to adjust to Nyada, and I don't think it's necessarily just it's going to her head. I think she's so overwhelmed, and she's so overwhelmed by all the stardom and everything, that basically it's taken over her life. She pretty much feels like this is what she needs to do, and that's what's going to get her on Broadway. But she tells Kurt, and Kurt and her have this big conversation about it. And I really love this scene between them. We have a really big fight between them, but I love the scene anyway because of what Kurt says to her. He says, I know what you're doing, and he tells her that, this is not going to do anything for your career. If anything, it's hurting your career. Nyada is the thing that's going to help you. All that work you put off meant nothing to you. And Rachel tells him that he needs to grow up and realize that what's more important. And, he angrily walks out because they just had this huge fight, and Kurt is just trying to be a supportive friend to Rachel. And I feel like, again, it's not necessarily Rachel's fault that she's acting this way. It's more of just she's overwhelmed. She's so preoccupied with Funny Girl that nothing else really matters to her anymore. She doesn't care about Nyada because she thinks that now she's a star. And Carmen Tibideaux said it. She cannot handle it. It's clear that Rachel cannot handle it. But then after this, here's where, after that scene, the episode got pretty dramatic. Because Kurt sees a guy being beaten up by these guys, in the gay bashing. Kurt runs up to them, and of course, he runs right up to them, and he gets hit in the head with a brick, punched a bunch of times, and they leave him there unconscious, and that's where we get the big, bash thing. So, even though that wasn't, most of the episode, that basically, was, what made the episode so big was it really was an episode for all the characters to realize, life is so precious and what's so important. Kurt was basically the one that brought them all together, brought them all to realize what they were doing was wrong, things like that, and I love that. So they find out, and I love the way they did this next scene. It was so, so good. They're all getting on with their lives and everything. They each get a call, and you can just see the reactions on their face. Blaine is the first one to get the call, and he's just like, hello? Yes, this is Blaine. And then you see him go, he can tell something's wrong. And then you see it happen to Sam, Mercedes, Rachel, Artie, all who did nothing in this episode. Artie honestly didn't even need to be in this episode. That's my only complaint, is that Artie had nothing to do in this episode. So he had no dialogue or anything. So, I mean, I don't know. But that scene was just, it was so dramatic, and I love the way they did that scene, because really, that's how it would work in real life. You're doing your normal thing, and then all of a sudden you just get a call out of nowhere that Kurt's in the hospital, and it's huge when that happened. So they all go to visit him, and Blaine decides, they're all sitting there, and Blaine starts to sing Nothing's Gonna Harm You, which was amazing. I loved that song that he sang, and what I loved about it was that it was just him in the song. In the actual cover, on if you get the song, it's all of them singing, but it was just Blaine, and it was really, really dramatic, and it was really sad, and just really, really well done. Love that very much. And then Blaine actually sings that for the showcase, so that was pretty big as well. And I just thought Darren Criss did a great job with that. He sang that song live, and it's always great when he sings songs live on this show, because he actually does sound, really, really amazing. As much as you hate Blaine, you gotta admit, he is the best, male performer on this show, shown in Broadway Baby Tonight, which, that it was his duet with Rachel, which was amazing, shown in, this song too, and that was also amazing. And then we get, probably the saddest scene of this episode, and it was just a really sad scene because of, what's the thing about, Bert comes in. Of course, you had to see Bert in the episode. He's Kurt's dad. Kurt got seriously hurt, and whenever it's a Kurt, focused episode, Bert is somehow involved. And he tells Kurt, what the hell were you thinking? He literally goes up to him and he starts yelling, and I'm thinking, he's yelling at him because it's his son, and just to think about his son in that kind of pain, is so upset. And he said, I understand what you were doing, but there are other things you could have done. And Kurt said, I've put up with this abuse for too long. I know what it's like. I needed to help this person. I didn't want them to go through what I had to go through. And honestly, you gotta feel bad for Kurt. You gotta feel bad for Kurt, because he's gone through this basically all his life. And, he's basically just telling his father that he wanted to help out, this guy. and he did whatever he could to help him, and he just says that he's gonna help him get through this, and I love that scene so much. You can just see that he loves his son, and Bert says he's gonna help him get through this, he's gonna help him with the gay bashing and everything, and he is gonna take control of the situation. So Kurt, we then see that Kurt's okay, luckily. Of course, we knew he'd be okay. They said he'd be okay in the hospital. And you see Kurt and Blaine, and he decides to go up to the picture of Russ, and he puts another flower there, and it turns out that Russ is actually going to be okay, and, he's going to be fine. So that's good. I was happy with that. And then, Kurt and Rachel do end up making amends. Kurt says that even though Rachel can be a bitch sometimes, he does love her. And Rachel says the same for Kurt. And I love their friendship. They always tie things up. That's why I love their friendship so much. That's why their friendship is my favorite friendship in the show, because no matter what happens, they're friends till they're still friends, and I love that about their relationship. Their friendship. It's really, really great. That was definitely great. And then Kurt sings the song "I'm Still Here," which was the last song of the episode. Great way to end the episode, perfect way, because it works perfectly with his storyline, and I just thought Kurt did a great job with that song, and it was great, because it brought everyone together, and that storyline was so dramatic, but it really brings a lot to it. We did not get a conclusion, though, as to Rachel. She still quit Nyada, so Rachel's not Nyada anymore, so if something happens to her in Funny Girl, she has nothing. And it's eventually going to bite her, it's eventually going to come back to bite her in the ass, because I heard that eventually, something happens to her in Funny Girl, so I'm thinking something bad's going to happen to her in Funny Girl, and she's going to end up having nothing, and she's going to realize that quitting Nyada was the worst thing she could have done, and, that's definitely going to be a very interesting storyline to see where that goes. But that was Kurt's story, the big storyline of the episode. Now, our second storyline, which was actually pretty big, I didn't think they were going to spend as much time on this as they did, is Sam and Mercedes' storyline. Sam and Mercedes, you can see that they're getting along quite well. Sam's watching The Facts of Life on TV. Very funny. I actually love that show. I think it's a great 80s show. One of my favorite 80s shows by far. I wasn't, in that time period. I wasn't born in that time period. I wasn't around yet, but I love watching those reruns on TV. It's definitely one of the best 80s shows that there is. It's definitely one of my favorites. So yeah, he's watching that, and Blaine is also reading fan fiction to him. Very funny. I love that he's getting settled into his apartment, but you can see that Sam and Mercedes are getting very close, and Mercedes and Sam seem like they're about to date. And Mercedes sees her friends, and her friends tell her, you cannot date Sam because he is white and you're black, and it's not going to look good for your image. This whole, they just keep talking about her image. Sam even talks about, like, a fur coat she was wearing and said that's going to, disrupt your image, because she's so concerned about her image, and she needs to not be concerned about that. That's another thing about this episode. It's also about fame, and that fame can do a lot to a person. Showing Rachel, also showing Mercedes in this episode. One of them takes a good path, one of them takes a bad path, though. And, Mercedes and Sam, Sam actually embarrasses himself in front of Mercedes' friends. Very funny. He even points out that she has a weave, and he says a whole black girl's impression. Hilarious scene. Probably the funniest scene of the episode was just when Sam was saying all that random shit out of nowhere. Absolutely hilarious. I love that. And so after that, we see that Mercedes decides to, this is after Kurt gets hurt. Mercedes, before, tells Sam that they can't be together because he's white, she's black, and she just can't handle it. And Sam says, well, that's not how it was in high school. And she says, well, we're not in high school anymore, and this is just real life, and we need to, you need to support that. But as soon as Kurt has that experience and is in the hospital, she decides to tell Sam that she's not listening to her friends. She's going to do what's right for her, and she just thinks so differently, and she sings the song Colorblind, which was actually the song that Amber Riley wrote. She actually wrote this song for the show, and I thought she did just a great job with that song, definitely. I loved that song on the show. Definitely one of my favorite songs of the episode. My favorite song in the episode probably being No One Is Alone, the very first song in the episode. I just thought that scene was so dramatic. But She did a great job with that. And in the end, Sam and Mercedes are together now. So I'm happy for them, definitely. The one thing that I am wondering, though, is when they said that Rachel gave this look to them, and I'm wondering if maybe she kind of likes Sam. I don't know. We'll have to see. But that was the episode. And as I expected, it was another amazing episode. It taught a lot of lessons. It really taught a lot of lessons, especially for Rachel, that, it's getting way too complicated for her. She really cannot handle this business at all. And she's really gonna, regret this decision that she made. Her fight with Kurt also was pretty big. Kurt also learned, he needs to not take action. He needs to learn when to keep himself from something and when to distance himself from it. But also, he learned to grow stronger as a person. I really like that, too. And then Mercedes and Sam, I thought their plot was very strong as well. But, again, this episode was amazing. I loved it. And it looks like next week, we're gonna, there's gonna be a lot of secrets that come out. Apparently, Sam and Mercedes are gonna, Mercedes is gonna want to tell Sam she's not a virgin, and she's a virgin and she wants to have sex with Sam, so that's gonna be one of the plots. There's something that's gonna happen with Artie that I don't want to talk about because it's actually really surprising, and I don't want to bring it up yet. But, again, this episode was really, really good. I really love where they're going with Glee New York. The tones of these last two episodes were very different. The first episode was very fun. This episode was a lot more dramatic. The beginning was fun, but the second half got really, really dramatic, and I really enjoyed that because it just showed that it's a very tough world out there, and it's a very tough business, and I love seeing that in this episode, definitely. That's one of my favorite things. Well, let me know what you guys saw this episode. Was this episode as good as last week's? I actually think it was as good. Was it, was it better than last week's? I think, I don't know. I really like both of them the same. But, what's going to happen now with Rachel? Do you think she's going to regret this decision? What's going to happen with that? That's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for the Justified finale. So, see you then. Bye.